Hey guys, Mike here from Lunch Money Comics with a quick follow-up to my last video. Yeah, in that last video, I found a brand new comic book and collectible store near where I live. I met this awesome owner named Rick, and the only thing more amazing than how beautiful his store was his fantastic prices. I said in that video I'd be heading back soon to help him go through some new comic books he got in. He had a ton of long boxes. I was helping him, pull out the keys, price some things out. Well, that's exactly what I did. I took about 3 hours of footage and condensed it down to about 5 minutes. So go check out that footage. There is a voiceover. Then I'll meet you back here afterwards where I want to address some comments I got on that last video and also show you 2 comic books I got from him that I'm pretty darn excited about. Check out the footage and I'll see you back here in a few minutes. So here we are, of course, starting with the X-Men books, my favorite. Like I said in my last video, I can price these in my sleep. We're starting with the X-Men series, 1991 series started by Jim Lee. Most of these guys are only a couple of dollars. I did find this X-Men number 4, first Omega Red. But even in the cases of these like minor keys, Rick was pricing everything at a couple dollars. This is sort of the way he operates his business. He likes to price things cheap, move them out the door, make people happy. And I think that's fantastic, obviously. But yeah, this X-Men series, everything's a couple dollars at most. There were a couple cool ones like this, number 24, famous Rogue Gambit cover everyone likes. I got to apologize for the camera angles. I was using my camera mount. I was talking so much. I was just really bad at aiming it. I did find X-Men numbers 52 and 53, first appearance of Bastion and Cameo. If you watch X-Men 97, you know what that is. And first Onslaught, which I think we can expect to see in a future season of X-Men 97. Here we are in the Uncanny run. Lots of annuals, which are all great reads, by the way, if you ever have a chance to pick them up. We have first Nimrod right here in number 191. Cool book. We get the famous Doom cover, not a great one. We have Life Death Part 2. We have number 201, first appearance of Baby Cable. We have first appearance of Omega Mutants right there in number 208. Number 210, First Marauders. Here's a great book, 212. This is the first Wolverine and Sabretooth fight. Here I am talking about the death of the mutant Destiny. I'm explaining the relationship between Mystique and Destiny and their relationship to Nightcrawler, which was convoluted, and this was a long, complicated conversation. Here I am looking at Thor, lots of Walt Simonson Thor run, which people find it very highly acclaimed. Lots of early Beta Ray Bill. Actually, we did find the first appearance of Beta Ray Bill. Rick already pulled it out. That's number 337. Very, very cool book. I think he sold it pretty much immediately. Here you see I find number 341. I think I've talked about this on my channel in the past. This one's funny because it has a cameo of Clark Kent in Lois Lane. I was explaining it to Rick, and he wanted to see it, so I figured I'd flip it open, and here you see them literally bump into, Clark and Lois by name. It's kind of neat. Here we are now looking at the Throg storyline. So there's actually 3 issues of when Thor turns into a frog. That's the last issue. We found all 3. Here's a random box. We found tons of Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. Most of it was reprints of the early issues, but I say it all the time, guys. Out here in New England, we find Ninja Turtle stuff everywhere because this is where they were printed. This box was pretty random. Jumping around here, we have some Secret Wars that was in there. He did find a Secret Wars 8 at some point he pulled out. Here we have first U.S. Ultraman, I believe, or at least early Ultraman. I had the card in there. Rick thought this was cool. He threw it in with all of his kaiju figures and stuff, his Japanese figure case, which is kind of fun. There was a lot of the Marvel team-ups with Spider-Man. There's a few decent books in that run, nothing great. I was kind of eager to get over back to the Wolverines, which you'll see in a second. We found a ton of these Marvel Universe, though. These are sort of the encyclopedia of Marvel characters. He had pretty much the whole run in multiple copies. He bundled them together. So if anyone is looking for like the whole encyclopedia, they're there. Tons of the other publishers, Image and Valiant, lots of Pitt, of course, lots of Preacher. I cut most of this footage, guys. It was pretty much half a long box full of this stuff. We see pretty ubiquitous 90s stuff. Here I am back in the X-Men stuff. We're in the X Factor run. This is a pretty good book. The first appearance of Archangel. Always a great book to find, just kind of tucked in this box. And here we are, it's sort of the late 90s X-Men, all the things sort of associated with mostly the Age of Apocalypse, which I'll talk a little bit more about in a few minutes. And now we're moving to the Conans. Guys, I know nothing about Conan. I really don't. I know a few things, but there was a lot of this stuff for those that are interested in it. So here's a reprinting of Hulk 181. Great option if you want to read about this iconic fight between Hulk and Wolverine without cracking open a multi-$1,000 comic book to do so. Here I am finding a comic book I had as a kid and I've been looking for recently. I'll talk more about it in a second. But it wasn't just 80s and 90s books. Here's a collection he had just gotten in. Guys, it's one of those things, if you build it, they will come. In the 2 months since he's been open, people have been walking in constantly with vintage toys and comics they wanted to sell or trade, and he had just gotten these in. Some pretty awesome books here. Some iconic Joker covers. Joker #1. I've always loved this cover with Joker with sort of the laser heat ray eyes. First appearance of Black Canary. Not very high grade, but a cool book anyways. Here's a big one, guys. This is Batman #251, iconic Neil Adams cover. Everyone loves this book. Another Neil Adams book, the first appearance of the Reaper. Very, very cool. Very sharp, high grade. And this is probably the best book I found in here. First appearance of Ra's al Ghul in very high grade. Pretty awesome book to just walk through the door. And here we are at the end of the night. It was over 3 hours. We were tired. Rick was collapsed on the floor. I just took the pricing gun. We were getting punchy, guys. We had a really fun time hanging out. My buddy Ben was there filming. Just a great time hanging out with these guys. But there's one more comic book I found at the end of the night. And this is not your typical X-Men #1, is it? Pretty iconic. Signature right in the front that everyone recognizes. Let's go back down to the basement, guys. I'll talk about my experience and how I ended up with this beauty in my collection. So there you go. That was once again Has-Been Collectible Toys and Comics in Wilbraham, Massachusetts. An awesome store, an awesome owner. I gotta be honest, guys, I've been in contact with Rick quite a bit from the first time I met him at that store. He's been sending me pictures of collections that he's gotten in. Amazing stuff, honestly, all the time. I know a lot of people actually found the store on their own in the area. Everyone's sort of saying the same thing. Not only are the prices great and it's a beautiful store, but Rick is an incredibly personable, awesome guy. And I've been trying to help him out just because, he's trying to grow the store and he's gotten a lot of attention. People have been going in there a lot. He's actually trying to expand the store. He's hiring a new person, actually. But he definitely could use a little bit of help of people who, are dealing with comic books a lot. And that's why I've been trying to help him out. I'm happy to have a brand new comic book and collectible store near where I live. It's always exciting to have that. I wanted to do well, and I just honestly really like Rick. He's such a really cool guy. So a couple of things I want to address really quickly that came up in my last video. I said several times in that last video I thought the prices were a little too low. I feel like I misspoke a little bit. I don't think they were too low. I just think they were lower than usual. And I'm comparing him relatively to other brick and mortar comic book shops and especially comic shows. Like I said, he prices a lot of his stuff by going on eBay recent sold prices, and he just picks the lower numbers. And he does know his comic books. He's doing this intentionally, guys. So I think if you compare his prices to stuff you find online, I think they're exactly comparable. I think he's really competitive in that regard. A lot of people go to comic shows and they look up on eBay recently sold prices like, look, you're too high. Rick doesn't want any of that. He doesn't negotiate. He just picks the lowest price. So that's the first thing. I don't think they were too low. I just think they were competitive. Secondly, a comment I got last time, and I can't tell if people were being facetious about this or not. Some people said, never tell a comic store owner that their prices are too low. One, if it's someone you like, of course you can. You can tell your friends that, right? I think your prices are a little low. I was just being friendly. But people think people are going to price up things when you tell them that. Rick doesn't. I had no influence on this grown man running his own store. Absolutely not, guys. He prices his books low on purpose. Didn't really matter what I said. And even when I was helping him price out books, I'm a pretty conservative guy anyways. I tend to price things low. Whenever I gave him a range on a book, say it was like $5 to $10, he'd always put $4.99. Even if I told him you could probably get 10 for it, $4.99. That's how he runs his business. I love the fact that he does it. He just has fantastic prices, and a lot of other people have absolutely discovered it. So I was over there helping him out. I have a great rapport with the guy. He's really cool. I didn't set out to get some new comic books from him, but I did. And there's a story behind each one of these. Before I show you what they are, if you like this sort of stuff, head on down, like, comment, subscribe. Follow me on Instagram under LunchMoneyComicsIG. You can also follow Rick on Instagram as well. I'll put links down in my description. The first book I want to show you, you saw in the footage, it is this. This is Excalibur, spelt funny, issue #3 from 1995. And this is from the Age of Apocalypse crossover event. So this came out in a very formative time in my life in the mid-90s. And the Age of Apocalypse was another alternate reality. Marvel does this all the time. All comics do too. DC does it as well. But I feel like the X-Men do it more than anyone else. Basically how this happens is the character of Legion goes back in time and accidentally kills his father, Professor X. And it's the old, grandfather paradox. What happens when you go back in time and you kill your own grandfather or your father? What happens? Well, in Marvel Comics, you get an offshoot reality, usually dark and dystopian. What happens in this, without the X-Men being led by the noble Professor Xavier, Apocalypse takes over the world, and the X-Men are instead led by Magneto. And because it's Magneto and it's a dark, dangerous world, most of the X-Men characters that we have in this version are anti-heroes or just kind of straight up bad guys. And that's sort of what we have here. And here's the thing, guys, it captured my imagination. Not only was it a cool take on a lot of the X-Men characters we know and love, it was a very different take on my favorite character of Nightcrawler. You see him right there on my shirt. Well, this is his dark counterpoint in the Age of Apocalypse. You know, in our normal 616 universe, he is Kurt Wagner. He is swashbuckling. He is fun. He's nice. He's a religious man, despite the fact he looks like a demonic, entity. He's actually one of the nicest, kindest X-Men. And because of that, although he teleports around and will punch and use swords, he never kills people, right? He's a very nice guy. Well, not so much his Age of Apocalypse counterpart, because this isn't Kurt Wagner, this is Kurt Darkholm. And that's his name because in this alternate reality, he's raised by his mother, Raven Darkholm, otherwise known as Mystique. So he's definitely not the nice Nightcrawler we know and love, and unlike the Nightcrawler we know and love, he is willing and able to use violence whenever necessary. So here we have a short 4-issue sort of side series tying into Age of Apocalypse called Excalibur, a play on the Excalibur team we all know that starts with an EX. Only 4 issues, that's all it was. The only thing really in common with the two teams is, in fact, Nightcrawler. And what's going on in this issue is, these mutants, they are actually trying to hide basically from Apocalypse, who's trying to hunt them down. Apocalypse, like normal, has his 4 horsemen of the Apocalypse, and his horseman of death is none other than Wade Wilson. He's called Dead Man Wade. Yeah, he's a bad version of Deadpool, and he's trying to hunt these guys down. And actually, one of the characters, Damask is her name. She actually defects and becomes a good guy when she sees how bad Apocalypse is. We also have this new character right here called Switchback. Very cool character. You know who her power is? She can actually go back in time 10 seconds and change things. Wicked cool concept. I'd love to see more of her. Alas, she didn't really ever appear outside of Excalibur issues 1 through 4. Love for them to bring her back, right? So Dead Man Wade, this evil version of Deadpool, is hunting them down. And what happens at the end of this book? Well, Kurt Darkholm wants nothing to do with it and decides to stop him pretty easily. He teleports behind Wade Wilson and then teleports away with his head, killing him instantly. Well, he doesn't really die. Of course, it's Deadpool and he can regenerate. That's what he does. But this just goes to show how powerful Nightcrawler can be when he uses his powers on the offensive, and he's not such a nice guy. Now, the reason why I wanted this book was because I've been talking about it recently. I was recently on a show called The Council of X. It's run by my good friend Ryan, the Colossus Collector, and we were talking about our favorite X-Men moments, going through each X-Men character. And I brought this up, although it's not the main 616 Nightcrawler. I thought this was a cool thing. I went to go find it, and I couldn't find this book. I have no idea what this book is. Maybe it's back there somewhere in my back issues, but here I saw it, in Rick's long boxes. I said, hey, it's not worth much. Can I grab this? I explained to him, what was going on in it. Yeah, guys, and I always thought this was really cool when I was a kid. But recently, this also has a little bit of modern comic book connections because, spoiler alert for those of you that are reading The Fall of X in sort of the end of the Krakoan era, in the recent X-Men number 35, the X-Men are fighting once again against Apocalypse. And Nightcrawler tries to stop this incredibly powerful mutant. How does he do it? He actually says, I know you think I'm a nice guy, but I'm not that nice. And he teleports away Apocalypse's eyes. Yeah. Pretty hardcore for the good-natured Nightcrawler. Of course, it doesn't do anything to Apocalypse. He just regrows his eyes back because he can change his molecules. But I thought it was pretty cool. And when I saw that, I was like, hey, that's exactly the type of, Kurt Darkholm things that he would have done. So that's why I wanted this book, guys. It's not worth a whole lot, but it definitely brings me back to my childhood. Happy to pick it up and share that story with all of you. Let me know if any of you have read the Age of Apocalypse storylines. I'd love to hear from you down in the comments. So this last book, you saw it in the footage. No point in beating around the bush. It's this. This is an X-Men number 1 from 1991, and yes, it is signed by Stan Lee. Right there on Professor X's wheelchair. Has a COA from Beckett and Associates. And guys, this is really cool, but I think the story behind it's even better because you know where Rick got this? Rick bought this himself in 1991 when this book came out on QVC, the Home Shopping Network. For those kids out there who have no idea what I'm talking about, way back before the internet, there was a television show you could watch, and if there was something that you saw on that show that you liked, you could call a phone number and they would send it to you. You could actually buy things with your telephone watching TV. That's what Rick did. In 1991, QVC was selling a ton of these signed by Stan Lee with a COA, and Rick ordered one and had it delivered to his house. It even came with the original case that it was in. And these are awful, like this hard plastic here. It's old, it's cracked, it's yellowed, it's dirty. This is what it was in when I found it. When I saw it, I'm like, Rick, that's really cool. He told me the story. I said, well, how much do you have on it? And he said, $50. And I said, Rick, that's too low. That is too low. A Stan Lee signature is almost always at least $100, even on a book like this that was, a dime a dozen. So I looked it up, and sure enough, yeah, you can find some graded ones, some of the other variant covers of this a little bit higher, but I found a copy of exactly this book recently sold for $100. So I told Rick, it's at least $100, Rick, but I'm curious. You know, I'm definitely interested in it. I've never owned a Stan Lee signature ever. What kind of comic collector am I, right? And he said he'd like to sell it to me for $50 anyways. That's the kind of guy he is, you know, like he wasn't going to change the price. It was $50. I wanted it. $50 was the price. I thought that was fantastic. This is my first Stan Lee signature. And here's the thing, guys, you know, I don't like it when people sign books they had nothing to do with, right? People do that sometimes. But I make an exception for Stan Lee on this book for a couple reasons. Even though he didn't work on this exact book, of course, he invented the X-Men along with Jack Kirby, as well as 4 of the characters that are on this variant cover: Jean Grey, Professor X, Beast, and Angel. You know, and you could say indirectly Storm, right? Because she's an X-Man. But also, the other reason, it's Stan Lee. It doesn't matter what he signed, right? People had him sign all sorts of crazy things because it was Stan Lee. It didn't have to be a book that he worked on. So I thought that was pretty cool anyways. The only bad thing I'll say about it, and I'm nitpicking here, right? I love the comic book, but I am going to argue about this case right here because, like I said, this is old. It's over 30 years old. They get brittle. They get discolored. And this one here, it actually cracked. That's how brittle it got. And when it cracked, it actually slightly damaged the book. Whenever this happened, you know, over the last 30-something years, you know, it's got a bad wrap anyways, and it damaged this top corner. Again, I still love the book. It still looks fantastic. But for those of you that have these old books that came in these awful hard plastic cases, throw them away, get rid of them, toss them, and put them in a new bag and board ASAP. So yeah, guys, I'm blown away to have my first Stan Lee signature, and it's on an X-Men book. Even better. So that's pretty darn cool. I didn't go over there looking for comic books, guys, but I couldn't say no to these. So there you go, guys. A quick video, but I felt like the last one definitely needed a follow-up, and Stan Lee's signature definitely deserved a follow-up. Head on down to the comments and let me know what you think of everything you saw. And that's it, guys. Keep hunting for comic books in strange and unusual places. Always support your local comic book and collectible stores, especially if they're new. Thank you all so very much for watching, and I'll see you all next time.